after class is over. Okay, I think I got it turned on. Okay, so we have the basics of statistics. This is the introduction, kind of the overarching theme or the overarching discussion for the Module 1 in the course. And please interrupt me if you have a question. But most people become familiar with probability and statistics through various media. You cannot hardly turn on the radio or the television, look at the internet, read a newspaper or magazine without seeing probably at least one statistic. Some examples of things that you might see in the media would be the cost of raising a child from birth to age 17 is $233,610, and that does not include college expenses. Americans own 42% of the guns in the world. There are 2.3 million Google searches per second. Motorists spend on average 17 hours per year searching for a parking space. Almost 80% of the time spent on social media platforms happens on a mobile device. And the median age of a person living in Georgia is 35.3 years, which was based on the 2010 U.S. Census report. One thing I want to point out to you here, notice how that sometimes the statistic is stated as a percentage. Other times it's stated just as a numeric value. You may also see the word average in the description. In some cases, it's almost just like a statement that involves a numeric value. Statistics is used in virtually every field of human endeavor. I mean, across the board, regardless of whether your major is business or political science, nursing, dental hygiene, communications, regardless of what your major is, at some point you are probably going to encounter, need to use, or interpret statistics. So for example, probably the most common area that we think about with statistics would be sports. Statisticians keep records of the number of yards a running back gains during a football game, or the number of hits a baseball player gets in a season, the number of wins that a team has. So sports obviously are inundated with statistics. Education. A teacher might want to know if a new teaching method is better than an old one. Criminal justice. A researcher uses a statistical model to predict increased risk of crime. They also use statistical models to help determine or to actually catch criminals based on where they can predict the next place they're going to strike or that sort of thing. Public health. An administrator might be concerned with the number of residents who contract a new strain of the flu virus, and then think about how quickly it spreads. Quality control. A manager wants to determine if the bottle filling machine is working properly. If you advertise the bottle has 12 ounces, you better be sure there's at least 12 ounces in there, or you could be charged with false advertising. Media and communications. Obviously, a weather person predicts the chance of precipitation on any given day. So again, statistics is used across almost every field of human endeavor, and I hope perhaps you'll see throughout the semester or throughout the term an example related to your particular field of interest. So why should we study statistics? Why do you even need to take this class other than maybe you need it to graduate from college. You just see it as one of those requirements that you need. But there are really two primary reasons why we should study statistics. One is so that you can read and understand various statistical studies performed in their fields, um, which requires a kind of a basic knowledge of vocabulary and symbols and concepts. And you're going to gain that basic understanding, that basic knowledge within this course. Even if you never actually conduct research, pretty much you will at some point probably read an article that involves statistics. And so you need to be able to understand that and make sense of what the author of the article is saying. Secondly, some of you at some point may be asked to actually conduct research in your field. And in order to conduct research, you need to be able to, you have a basic understanding of how do you actually set up the experiment, or how do you set up that research, from the point of how you should phrase the question to how you go about collecting the data, how do you analyze it, and then how do you summarize it to share it back with your audience, whether that be your boss or other researchers. And thirdly, just so that you can become a better consumer and a better citizen. Sometimes statistics you may want to look at the statistics related to a particular vehicle. It's what's its gas mileage, or what's its longevity. And so giving you that information can help you be a better consumer and a better citizen, thinking about which car you want to buy. Or which candidate you want to vote for during an election. So those are kind of three primary reasons why we should study statistics. And again, this course is going to give you just a very basic understanding of statistics, enough that you could accomplish those three things during your lifetime if you needed to. So for most students, this is your first true encounter with statistics. And so I often tell students that learning statistics is very much like learning a new language. Statistics has its own unique vocabulary and concepts. And so in this first module, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get familiar with the language of statistics. We're going to look at statistics vocabulary. We're going to look at different types of data, different sampling techniques. And then in the fourth lesson, we actually begin focusing on what we call qualitative data. Okay, so again, don't get overly frustrated, again, because this is probably new information to you, again, because you haven't probably encountered statistics, at least in this format, previously. And so we got to get familiar with the language. So honestly, this first module is a lot of vocabulary, a lot of definitions. But you've got to be able to communicate with each other and with me, and with research or researchers as you go through the course. Okay, so I want to begin. We're going to spend the next 14 days talking about statistics. We need to know, what is statistics? I mean, what's the point of talking about it if you don't know what it is? And if you were to look up statistics in the dictionary, you would see two definitions. The first definition defines statistics, and it says statistics is, okay, the science of gathering, describing, and analyzing data. Okay, notice that in that definition, the word statistics is viewed as a singular object. It says statistics is. So statistics is like my big overarching theme. Just like we have English as its own subject matter, or history as its own. We view that as a collective group. So statistics is viewed as a collective group, and it again is that science of gathering, describing, and analyzing data. So if you want to think about it, and I'm going to switch over to a Word document for a second and show you, I'm going to draw us a picture here. If I can get my little thing to work. Okay, so again, what we're thinking about here is we think about the statistics is, okay, it is kind of this overarching theme. So we have statistics is like the umbrella. Okay, and we view that as a collective group. So this is. It's the science, the whole process from beginning to end of collecting the data, analyzing the data, and summarizing the data. The second definition, and I'm going back to the PowerPoint, the second definition says statistics are. Notice the change in the verb. Statistics are the actual numerical descriptions of sample data. Okay, so there's two definitions, and so you have to pay attention to the context within which the word is used. Statistics is, looking at it as a collective unit, is the whole process. But then if you look at the statistics are individual values. It's the actual numerical descriptions of sample data. And I want to focus a minute on this first definition, the idea of the overarching theme that it's collective, it's the whole process from beginning to end. Okay, and then we'll talk later about definition number 2. So we're going to focus on definition number 1 at the moment. So statistics is, when you think about it as your overarching theme, there are 2 broad categories of statistics. The first one is called descriptive statistics. And I want you to notice, and I'm going to get out of this for just a second. I want you to notice in this word, you have descriptive, okay, which is the adjective form of a noun or a verb. Okay, so we have statistics, and what we're saying is we're going to divide statistics up kind of like into 2 groups. On the one hand, you're going to have descriptive. And descriptive is the adjective form of the verb describe. And so with descriptive statistics, and it's listed on the PowerPoint this way, okay, is descriptive statistics is kind of the area or the branch of statistics that most people are familiar with, because most people, when they think about statistics, they think about the pretty pictures and the graphs and tables and that kind of thing. So this is kind of the area of statistics that most people have at least some knowledge about. And again, that verb, that adjective, descriptive statistics, this is the area that involves specifically the collection organization, summarization, and presentation of the material. Again, this is kind of more thinking about, okay, how am I going to go about doing this process? How am I going to collect the data? Then I got to organize it so I can make sense of it. Then I want to think about summarizing it and presenting it. Again, this is the area where we think about creating those pretty graphs and tables. And we are making no assumptions about the population. Okay, we're not making any assumptions about anything. We're just collecting the information within the realm of descriptive statistics. I like to think about it, kind of the easiest way to think about descriptive statistics is to think about all you want is just the facts. There used to be a television show called Joe Friday, or it was a detective show. And when he would go to interview someone about a crime, he would say, "Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts." And so that's kind of what you want with the descriptive statistics, is you simply want just the facts. Okay, so if you're taking notes and putting it onto this little flow chart, underneath descriptive statistics, basically what we want is just the facts. Okay, there's no assumptions. About the data itself. So for example, I have the roster of students that are enrolled in this class, and it appears that there are 15 of you present today. So I can say, fact-wise, I have 15 students present. I can see that 2 of you are business administration majors. I can see that 1, 2 of you are interested in going into the field of nursing. I can see that 3 of you are in the bachelor's degree for health science. I can see that 1 of you is undeclared, which typically means you would be a high school student because you're joint enrolled. So see, I'm stating facts. I have these things. Now, I can't really tell. I might could figure it out based on names, maybe. I could state something like, I have so many girls and so many guys, but again, without seeing faces, I might get that wrong. But I'm just stating facts about the group. I'm not making any kind of assumptions. The other branch of statistics, is called inferential statistics, and I'll go back to the PowerPoint in just a minute. But the other branch of statistics is called inferential statistics. You may not be as familiar, but that's also an adjective, and it's an adjective for the verb infer. And infer is kind of a fancy-dancy word to mean that we're going to make a generalization. Okay, so with inferential statistics is the branch or the area where we begin to interpret or to make some assumptions. Inferential statistics is where we take what we know and then we apply it back to a larger group. We're making some general statements about the population. Again, inferential statistics is the side or the part where we begin to interpret the information. Well, what does that really tell us? What does it mean if I have 15 students enrolled in statistics during Maymester? Or what does it mean if I have 2 that are business majors? We begin to focus on what does that information tell us? So in order to do that, we have to begin to make some assumptions. So with inferential statistics, again, with it, we're beginning to interpret the information. So we're making broad general statements. We are possibly making some assumptions about the group. Okay. Just for example, just scanning my list, I would make a broad statement that the majority of the students enrolled in Math 1401 during Maymester are female. Again, just looking at the list and having heard some voices this morning, I would anticipate that the majority of the students are female. Okay, so I'm taking kind of the facts of looking at names, and I'm making a broad statement. I'm making an assumption about some things, so I'm interpreting it. But here's the deal, guys. Even though this is considered two separate branches, you have to be able to describe your group. But then you also have to be able to make those assumptions and generalizations about your group. The two categories are connected together. You really can't do one without the other. So you need descriptive statistics in order to do inferential statistics. So you can't do one without the other. So even though we consider them two separate groups or two separate categories, they're actually interconnected. Okay, let me pause for a minute and see if you have any questions thus far. You can unmute and speak if you do. Okay, and then lastly, with this introduction, is kind of the objectives. What do I want you to learn by the end of Module 1? Hopefully by the end of Module 1, you'll be able to demonstrate knowledge of the basic vocabulary of statistics, classify data by type and level of measurement, and also identify some basic sampling techniques. Okay, any questions before we move on? I do have another activity that I want us to do related to this topic, but I'm going to hold it for a few minutes, and we'll take another little break in a few minutes, and you guys I'll have you guys do that assignment together. There are not any homework. There's not any homework related to this particular lesson. So there's not any practice problems or homework problems related to the basics of statistics. Okay, that was our overview. So I'm going to shift gears and move to the next PowerPoint. If you want to open it up on your computer, it's called Statistics Vocabulary. It's lesson 1. Okay, statistics vocabulary. Okay, so again, you've got to have a working knowledge of the terminology or the words or phrases that are used within statistics. And in a lot of cases, they're unique to statistics. And so you may have heard some of these before, you may have not. So we're going to kind of walk through a few of these. Okay, so we start out talking about a variable. Now, I would be willing to bet that probably somewhere in your educational background, math related, you've talked about a variable, because in algebra we talk about a variable. And so it really has kind of a similar meaning even within statistics. A variable is a characteristic of interest for each person or thing in the focus group. Okay, so it's kind of like the unknown. Just like when you have an equation like x plus 2 equals 5. The x is your unknown value, or is your variable, and your goal is to figure out what that variable is equal to. Well, with statistics, the variable is some sort of characteristic that's unknown to you. For example, it might be a person's eye color or a person's age. So there's a variety of things. In layman's terms, the variable is what you want to know about. Okay, what are you trying to find information about? Do you want information about eye color, about age, about where a person lives, about their major? Okay, I kind of asked you some questions earlier, your name, your major, your dream job, those kind of things. Those would have been my variables. That was what I wanted to know about. It is what we call random. It's determined by chance. I mean, the fact that you have green eyes, I mean, there's obviously some biology or genetics going on behind the scenes, but the answer is going to be random or determined by chance. So some examples of variables, and I've already mentioned a few, things like eye color, height, age, your preferred soft drink, salary, your political affiliation. And even within statistics, okay, even within statistics, the variable here, we usually use the letter X, okay? Even within statistics, the variable is usually denoted by the letter X. So the variable is what you want to know about. Well, why won't it let me? Hold on just a minute, guys. It's locked up on me. Okay. Let me open it back up again. It does this occasionally. Okay, the next word or the next vocabulary that you need to learn is data. Data is the actual responses. Okay, if the eye color is what you want to know about, then the data is the responses. Like you have blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes. In the case of my husband, you have one brown and one green. He has two different color eyes. So the data is the actual responses or the values that you get for that particular variable. Data, by the way, is plural. Okay, it means you have more than one. If you refer to a single value, it's really datum. Okay, so data is plural. So again, you'll see the examples there. For age, it might be 18, 47, 23. Political affiliation, Republican, Democrat, Independent. Okay, so those are your, again, the variable is what you want to know about. The actual responses to the variable are called data. Then we have to talk about, and we've really seen these phrases this morning already, is population and sample. So the population is the group that you're interested in. I like to think about the population as being my big picture focus. It is the group that I'm really interested in. It's the big picture focus. And it includes all, and that's a key word there, guys. It includes all individuals, objects, or measurements that you're focusing on, that you're studying. Okay, so a key word that you often see when you're defining a population is the word all. And sometimes it's actually written in the description, or it can be implied. Okay, it can be implied, but the population is like your big picture focus. So, and I want to kind of draw a picture here for you on my piece of paper. Okay, so when we're thinking about the population, I can't make that X go away right now. Okay, when you're thinking about the population, again, the population is your big picture focus. So think about the population as being the big group. Okay, and again, it typically involves the description for all. And it may not be explicitly stated with the word all. So for example, if we go back to the PowerPoint, but again, think about the population. It's your big group. Okay, the population is your big group. So the governors of the 50 United States. Okay, notice that particular description doesn't involve the word all, okay, but it does say of the 50 United States, which has that connotation of being all the states. Okay, so that's a population. All 9,687,653 people living in Georgia. Okay, notice that one uses the word all. All 5,702 GHG students in spring 2018. Again, that one uses the word all. Because here's the challenge. I might very well be able to get information from the governors of the 50 United States. Because you got to figure that's about 50, obviously 50 people. I could manage to do that. But think about how challenging it would be to get information from 9,687,653 people that are living in Georgia. Now, currently, the government's trying to do that. If you haven't heard about the 2020 census, let me tell you, the government is attempting to get information from every household within the United States. And that's called the census. They're trying to get a sense of the population. But think about how difficult that is. Personally, I know that I've already received at least 3 mailings about the census, and I think I've already gotten 1 phone call. Now, I've done mine, okay, but there are a lot of people who haven't, and there may be people who may never respond. So again, think about it with the population when you're trying to get information from every single individual or every individual household within that large of a group. Think about how difficult it's going to be, how expensive it could be, and how time consuming it's going to be. In fact, if you think about the census, guys, the government only does it every 10 years. That's because part of the reason is it's so expensive. And then the other reason is it can take that long to analyze all of the information that they get. Okay, so it would be pointless to try to do it year after year after year after year. So again, think about when you're dealing with the population, it's difficult, if not impossible, to get information from every single person in that group. Now, we'd love to do that, but again, it's challenging. So most times within research, what researchers do is instead they deal with what we call the sample. The sample is a subset of the population. It's a smaller, more manageable group that's used in the statistical research study. Okay, it typically is going to be some, S-O-M-E, some of the individual's objects or measurements whose properties that we're studying. Okay, so if you think about it in terms of our picture that I was drawing, okay, you have your population, but again, that population may be hard to manage because of its size. And so what researchers do is they come in and they choose from within that population, they choose a smaller group that is more manageable. Okay, and that's called our sample. And again, we choose some of them. Now, how many we choose is going to vary. There's kind of a rule of thumb within statistics that you want to try to do 5% of the population. Okay, so if we took those 5,702 students in spring of 2018 and we chose 5%, we would need to select about 286 students. You know, so again, it can vary. Some researchers may tell you to do 10%. Some may say, well, oh, you could maybe only do 2%. Again, it kind of depends on what you're doing, what kind of research you're doing. But again, the general rule of thumb is you want to do about 5% of the population. And so we take some people from that big group and they kind of become the group from which we get the information. So for example, we may, instead of trying to survey all 9 million plus people living in Georgia, maybe we randomly select 500,000 people. Or we randomly select 100 students that were enrolled in Math 2200, or they're enrolled in Math 1401. Again, because we have access to those students. So the sample is we choose some of the people. And again, it'll probably give you a specific number. Like it'll say we're going to select 500,000, we're going to select 100, but it's a subset. And I drew the picture here on the screen as well on the PowerPoint slide, but I think it makes more sense to talk about it as we go, but it is there on the slide. Okay, continuing with that, connected to each of those groups, connected to the population, as well as to the sample, you have a numerical measurement. Okay, we have kind of those things associated with it. So associated with the population is a parameter. The parameter is a numerical description of a population characteristic. Okay, a parameter is a numerical description of a population characteristic. Again, because of the challenge of getting information from every single person in that big population group, we often are not able to truly calculate the value of a parameter. It's impractical or impossible because we never really have all of the information from every single person in the group. The parameter tends to be fixed. If we're looking at the same big picture focus every time, all the time, then the value of that characteristic isn't going to change. So the parameter tends to be fixed or constant, remains the same for the population. And I've given you some examples. We might say the average age of a U.S. governor is 59.5 years. Okay, so we were able to determine the age of all 50 governors, and hopefully you know how to average. You add them up and divide by how many you have. And we found that the average age is 59.5 years. The median age of a person living in Georgia is 35.5 years, and I referenced that earlier. That comes from the 2010 census. Again, that's the effort of the government to survey every household or every person living within the state. So again, I want to go back to my picture and make you a note here that for the population, it's called a population parameter. And I want you to notice that both population and parameter both start with the letter P. And that's one way that you can remember it, is that a population parameter, the P and the P go together. And sometimes they'll even emphasize it. They'll use the word population as an adjective and refer to it as a population parameter. We actually have already defined the value for the sample, because the value for the sample, that numerical measurement, is definition number 2 of statistic. It is a statistic. The statistic is a numerical description of a sample characteristic. Okay, that's the second definition of statistic. Now, the challenge with a statistic is it's going to vary from sample to sample or group to group. If I were to take the 15 of you that are present and figure your average age, and then I go out to my class that meets later on in the summer, and I figure the average age for that group, I'm probably going to get 2 different answers because I'm looking at 2 different groups. Now, ideally, what happens is those values are close. They're similar. They're approximately the same, okay, to show that we're kind of narrowing in or zeroing in, targeting in on what that value would be for the entire population. Okay, that's ideally what happens. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We actually use what we learn about the sample, that small group, and we use it to estimate, to infer what that value would be for the population. Okay, so that's kind of where there's a connection between descriptive and inferential, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Let me give you these examples, then I want to go back to my picture. 85.8% of Georgians are at least a high school graduate, or 40.9% of GHC students take classes online. Those are statistics based on the sample, based on the group of students that I focused on. So if I go back to my picture, again, sample, we call those numerical measurements are called statistic. So it's a sample statistic. And again, notice, guys, that the word or the words sample and statistic both start with S. So again, that's a way to remember it because it's connected together. Sample, statistic. Okay. And again, what I was saying was what we do is we take what we learn about this small group, this sample, and we apply it back to the population. That's where we get into that realm of inferential statistics. We take what we learn about the small group and we apply it back to the big group. Okay, again, that diagram is on the PowerPoint slides. And then I have a table that I created. It actually came from a former textbook to let you see kind of the differences and the similarities between population and sample. The population is the whole group, and it's the one that I really want to know about, but would be very challenged to get information from every single person in the group. The characteristics are called parameters. They're typically unknown and they're fixed because this group remains fixed or the same. For the sample, I'm using part of the group. It's the group that I can learn about or know about. My characteristics are called statistics, which can be calculated so they're known to us, but they change from sample to sample. So that's a nice table, again, that came from a former textbook that I think can be beneficial for you. Okay, so I want us to take a look at some examples, and these examples are similar to what you would see in your practice problems and your homework related to this section. So this will give you a sense of what to look for or what to expect when you look at your practice problems, okay? So in these problems, you're going to be given a scenario and asked to identify the variable, the population, the parameter, the sample, and the statistic. And guys, I would tend to do them in that order that I have them listed there. I would identify the variable first, then my big picture focus, what my measurement was going to be, what my sample is going to be, the small group, and then the measurement for that group. Okay, so I would do them in that order. Okay, so let's see if I can give you the scenario. Okay, and I'm gonna pull this down for a second. Well, maybe not. It won't let me do it that way. Okay, so here's your scenario. You want to know the average mean amount of money first-year college students spend at ABC College on school supplies that do not include books. We randomly survey 100 first-year students at the college. Okay, so the first question would be, what is the variable for this study? What do you want to know about? Okay, so let me kind of help you out here. I was hoping somebody would respond. Let's see if I can get rid of that X out of the way. Okay, so it says you want to know the average mean amount of money. So see guys, look at the words. Pay attention to the words, okay? Because they're going to help you, okay? So for example, look at this. It says you want to know, okay? Remember the variable is what you want to know about. So I want to know the average amount of money spent by first-year college students on school supplies that do not include books. Okay, pay attention, guys. You've got to read it carefully, slowly. Pay attention to the phrasing. So it tells me clearly that I want to know the amount of money spent by first-year college students on school supplies that do not include books. And guys, notice how in that description, when I've described that variable, when I wrote the answer, it's got all the details. Guys, with statistics, the devil is in the details. The details are very, very, very important because it gives context to the research that you're doing. Okay, so when you describe the variable, think about like the 5 W's: who, where, what, when. And probably in the back of your mind, you even have why. Okay, so think about what information are you collecting, from whom are you collecting it, you know, even where, so who, what, where, when, why. Okay, think about those things. Now, the second question asks you about the population. Now, here again, when you're thinking about the population, you want to give your details, but the population may not be explicitly stated in the scenario. You may have to read between the lines. Okay, so again, we're looking at the amount of money first-year college students spend at ABC College. So my population would actually be all of the first-year college students at ABC College. Okay, so in this description of my variable, what I want to know about, it gives me the implied population. First-year college students spend at ABC College. Okay, so the population is all, notice the word all, first-year college students at the ABC College. The parameter is the measurement. What kind of measurement are we going to make? You know, are we doing a percentage? Are we doing a ratio? Are we doing an average? Are we doing a median? Okay, the parameter is the numerical measurement associated with the population. Okay, and it again, it says very clearly in the question, the average. So my measurement is the average, or the mean amount of money spent by first-year college students on school supplies excluding books at ABC College. And it really should be spent by all. Okay, I really should have put the word all in there again to emphasize that the parameter is connected to the population. All right, then it asks us what is the sample of the research study. Okay, the last sentence kind of gives us a clue because it says we randomly survey. We could say we randomly sample 100 first-year students at the college. So my sample is the 100 randomly surveyed first-year students at ABC College. Okay, pay attention to the wording. It really all will fall right out for you if you do that. You got to read carefully. You may have to read multiple times. The statistic would be, is still, I want to know the average amount of money spent, but it's the average amount of money spent by those 100 randomly surveyed students. Okay, so I want to pause there. I have another example, but I want to pause there, and I want us to do the second activity, And after that's completed, I want us to come back and look some at your practice problems and your homework problems related to this statistics vocabulary, because I know that this is one where sometimes students get really bothered by the phrasing. But guys, a lot of it is the devil is in the details. You have to pay attention to the phrasing. Okay, so let me show you about the second assignment, second activity. And you can, you're going to work on this one in groups, okay? I'm going to break you into groups inside of Zoom. There should be about 3 of you to a room, okay? And you can work together. One of you, y'all can decide who, one person will submit the assignment for the entire group. Okay, so if you're in D2L, if you'll go to assessments and assignments, and I hope you're able to see the assignment. It doesn't open up exactly right for me. Okay. But again, I want you to get a sense of the fact that the statistics is all over the media, okay, through radio, television, internet, newspapers, whatever. Okay, so I want you to search. I put reputable websites to find 2 different statistics. And you will submit the statistic and the website where you found it. And you're going to include all group members' names. The entire group will get the same grade. If you do 2 different statistics, then you're going to get the 20 points regardless. So here's what I would expect in like a Word document. At the top, you put the group members' names, okay? John Doe, Susie Q, Laura Ralston. Then you put your statistic, and this is one that I did last week. Most Americans continue to say the U.S. government is doing a poor job preventing the spread of COVID-19, according to a CNN poll conducted by SSRS, and that came from CNN.com. Okay, so that was one that I found. I went to CNN.com, kind of searched around. I mean, there's all kinds of statistics out there, whether it's related to politics. Right now, you probably can find them like crazy related to COVID-19. I'm sure there might be some sports related ones if you're interested in that sort of thing. I found this one on NBCnews.com. It said, should records fall Wednesday in Boston and New York City? They will break old standing records from the late 1800s. Boston's record low temperature to beat Wednesday is 38 degrees, which was set in 1882. And New York City's is 39 degrees, set in 1895. So it's weather related. It can be related to anything. Again, it could be sports, it could be weather, it could be COVID-19, okay? But you're going to find 2 different ones. So your paper should look very similar to this, okay? Group member names. Number 1, put in the statistic, where you found it. Number 2, put in the statistic, where you found it, okay? And then you'll save it and then attach it or put it into this folder, okay? There's an option when you go to assignments where it should let you load it up into that folder, okay? And I listed for you some websites that you can use. This list by no means is exhaustive. Someone asked earlier, could you use Galileo? You may, but I've listed like CNN, Fox News, MSN, NBC News, the CDC, the Nursing World, Small Business Association, Association of Dental Hygiene, Weather, NCAA.org. So there's a variety, okay? So you're going to work together in a group. I'm going to randomly assign you to a group, okay? And then you'll do this assignment. And then we'll come back together, and I want us to take a look at some of the homework and practice problems related to the statistics vocabulary. Is everybody okay?
How are we supposed to break off into the groups once you assign them?
It'll automatically put you into a room. Okay, there's 15 of you, so I'm going to break you out into 5 rooms. You'll see it. It'll kind of give you an option like to go to the room. You just go to the room. Okay?
Thank you.
I can pop in and out of the rooms to see if you have questions. Or if you have a question, I think you can send me a message and I can pop in and help you. We're going to give it a shot. Y'all ready? Okay, here we go. I'm going to create the rooms. Okay, you should have received an invitation to join. And I can see you guys joining. Okay, looks like everybody's in a room.
Hello. I can't hear you.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Did you not get an invitation to join a room?
I did, and then it took me out of it.
Okay, so you should be in breakout room 3. So let me see if I can add you to breakout room 3. Okay?
Okay.
Because I'm looking on my phone too. On CNN at COVID vaccines.
Hey, Kendall?
Yes.
There's one other participant that I'm trying to get assigned to your room. She apparently is having some sort of difficulty, but there should be one more coming into your room, okay?
Okay.
Kendall, I'm looking for your email, student email.
Yes, it should be kdunn12 at student.highlands.edu.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
have you been able to join room 3? Are you in there now?
Yes, I just came in.
Okay, you're in with Yesenia and Kendall, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Elizabeth Grace.
Yes. I just go by Grace.
Okay, looks like everybody's back. You can, once you're finished, you can rejoin the main room before I close the breakout room. So anytime you want to do that, once you're finished, you can do that. That's no problem. Do you have questions before we continue our discussion? I'll take a look at those assignments this afternoon. One group did notice that the rubric showed 4 statistics. I changed it this morning to 2, so I'll redo the rubric before I grade the assignment this afternoon. I think. And go out to, I want to show you, look at the practice problems related to the statistics vocabulary. Sometimes this is one that gives students a little bit of pause, and so hopefully we can walk through it together. Let me share my screen again, guys. I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. I forget, you guys remind me. Okay, so inside D2L, the easiest way to get there is go to assessments, quizzes, and then I'm going to go to Module 1, Statistics, Vocabulary, Practice Problems. Now I have to put it into preview mode because I'm in the instructor mode. The one thing that I'm not overly thrilled about is the way this particular assignment is designed. The order of the questions is random, and so just taking a quick look in this first scenario, the first question asks you for the population, the second one for the sample, the third one for the parameter, the fourth one for the variable, the fifth one for the statistic. So they're not really in what I called the recommended order a while ago. So what you can do, and you may find it helpful to do this, is to look at the scenario and kind of answer the questions yourself before you start marking answers here. Okay, so the first scenario, for example, I'm going to take this over to a Word document just to kind of show you what I mean. Okay, so I'm going to copy this question and get me a new Word document. Okay, so this is the first scenario. It says studies are often done by pharmaceutical companies to determine the effectiveness of a treatment program. Suppose that a new AIDS antibody drug is currently under study. It is given to patients once the AIDS symptoms have revealed themselves. Of interest is the average or the mean length of time in months patients live once they start the treatment. A researcher follows 40 patients with AIDS from the start of the treatment until their deaths. Okay, so again, all of the questions are there inside the D2L, and you'll notice that it's multiple choice. The majority of the questions that you're going to see throughout the semester will be multiple choice because that's the easiest way to enter them into D2L, and it will auto grade for you. But let's kind of walk through this one and think through some things here. So the first thing I would really want to know is the variable. Okay, remember the variable is what you want to know about. And guys, there's a lot of words and stuff in this paragraph, and so you may need to read it again, but I noticed that it said of interest. So that must be what I'm interested in, or what I want to know about is the average mean length of time in months patients live once they start the treatment. Okay, now when you talk about average or mean, that's the measurement. Okay, what I want to know about is how long did the patient live once they started this treatment. And you want to include, when you define that variable, you want to include all of those descriptors. Okay, so my variable here is going to be the length of time, specifically in months, patients live once they start the treatment. Okay, that's my variable. Then the next thing I would think about is the population. What is my big picture focus? Okay, my population is the big picture. And again, typically that description would include the word all. So typically when you write this description, you're going to have the word all in it. Now, I am going to go back out here for a minute to D2L. Look at your choices here, okay? Look at the choices. The first question that they actually ask you here is, excuse me, is what is the population? Okay, so it gives you the options for all AIDS patients, all AIDS patients whose symptoms have revealed themselves, the 40 AIDS patients being followed by the researcher, or simply all adults. Now, one of the things that you can do, especially when you're looking at multiple choice, is to think about, are there any of these choices which I could eliminate? Okay, and there are. Okay, so for example, the population being the big picture, I know it's got to include the word all, so it's not going to be the one that says the 40 AIDS patients. I could probably eliminate another one because as I read the scenario was talking about AIDS patients. So it's very doubtful that my population is all adults. So I can eliminate that choice. So I've narrowed it down to either all AIDS patients or all AIDS patients whose symptoms have revealed themselves. Well, guys, if you go and look at the question, okay, and you read the question or read the story again, it says that the new drug is given to patients once the AIDS symptoms have revealed themselves. It clearly says AIDS symptoms have revealed themselves. Or it says once the patients start the treatment. So all of the people that are in this study have started the treatment. In order to start the treatment, the AIDS symptoms have revealed themselves. So even though I've narrowed it down to, and I have to include the descriptor. So my answer is really going to be all AIDS patients whose symptoms have revealed themselves. But again, guys, it's not just explicitly stated. It doesn't literally say the population is. You have to read carefully and even read between the lines. From there, then once we decided that our population is all the AIDS patients whose symptoms have revealed themselves, let me go back out. I need to erase here, so hold on, let me get this out of the way. Okay, and go back out, and we're going to say that our population is all AIDS patients whose symptoms have revealed themselves. Okay, and again, I get that statement because it says they get the treatment once the AIDS symptoms have revealed themselves. Then I want to think about, connected to the population is the parameter. The parameter is the measurement that you're going to take. Okay, the parameter is the measurement. So if I go back and again read in my story, it says the average or the mean. So the measurement, really, regardless of whether it's for the population or for the sample, my measurement is the average or the mean. Okay, so you put in your measurement and you're measuring the variable. So it's the mean length of time in months patients live once they start the treatment. Once, really we should say, let me back up for a second. We should say average mean length of time in months that all, because we're doing it for the population, all AIDS patients live once they start the treatment. Again, putting in that phrase there, all AIDS patients, lets me know that that measurement connects back to the population. So again, notice the phrasing, and there's kind of a pattern here, guys. You have to indicate the measurement, you indicate the variable, and that it's for the population. Okay, so when you're describing the parameter, you got to tell me the measurement that you're using for the variable for the population. And we'll go back out and look at how it's worded on in the homework problem in just a minute. Then you think about your sample. Whoops. Okay, the sample, remember, is your small group. And in this phrasing, the way that it's phrased in this particular problem, in the last sentence it says, a researcher follows 40 patients with AIDS from the start of their treatment to their death. So I'm tracking or keeping up with 40 patients. Okay, so my sample is the 40 patients who have begun the treatment. 40 AIDS patients. How did they word it? Again, you want to put in the details. The 40 AIDS patients receiving the treatment. And they're receiving the treatment because their symptoms have revealed themselves, so they're given this new drug. The statistic is really the same as the parameter, except it applies to that small group. Okay, so let's go back out here and look at how kind of these phrases or how they're worded here in this story. We said our sample, and guys, if you'll notice how for the population and for the sample, they give you kind of the same choices. Remember, with the sample, okay, that you're looking for that small group. So the fact that the other three of these descriptions here have all, By elimination, I know that it's the 40 AIDS patients. Okay. Then let me get rid of that so it won't be in our way. Okay, then for this parameter, remember again, think about it. The parameter is connected to the population, and the population involves all the people. So if it involves all the people, okay, so if I'm scanning these choices here, I notice that the third choice talks about the 40 AIDS patients, and the fourth one talks about the 40 AIDS patients. Okay, that's not the population. I'm looking parameter population, so it has to include all. Okay, and do I want just the number of months that they live, or do I want the average number of months? Okay, remember the parameter is the measurement, and the measurement that we're using for this problem is average. Okay, is average. So it would actually be this second choice here. Again, use the process of elimination to eliminate some of your choices. Okay, then it asks us for the variable. Again, these are a little bit out of order, but again, use what you know to help you eliminate some choices. Okay, what do you want to know about? Again, if I go back to that statement, I want to know the number of months an aged patient lives once he begins treatment. And you just click in the little box and it marks it for your answer. The statistic, again, remember the statistic is related to the sample. And so the first two options where it talks about all the patients, I know that it's not either one of those because I don't want all. For the sample or for the statistic, it is the sample. And again, it's a measurement. So you got to have that word, that measurement word in there, like average. Okay. Okay, so again, a lot of it is almost like wordsmithing. You want to pay very close attention to the words and phrases. Okay, so we have about 26 minutes left. Okay, I want you to take a minute and you guys work on questions 6 through 10. Let's just do the next group. Okay, if you may have it pulled up in your D2L, or you can look at it. You can't really see them all on this screen. Okay, take a look at questions 6 through 10, and then we'll come back in about 5 minutes and we'll talk about it and see what kind of questions you have.
Do we answer it on our own thing and then submit it?
The practice problems are not graded, so you can put it on, you can answer it there and then submit it. Be fine. It won't count against you. It won't hurt you either way.
How many times can we take the practice? You said those are like unlimited?
Unlimited.
Okay. And did you say questions 6 through 10?
I just want to see how you do reading the question on your own before I turn you loose to actually do it. Okay, guys, you ready? I hope some of you will maybe unmute and respond as we go through the. Yes, ma'am.
I'm ready.
Okay. The scenario said we want to know the average amount of money spent on school uniforms each year by families with children at Knoll Academy. We randomly survey 100 families with children in the school. 3 of the families spent $65, $75, and $95. Okay, so question 6 asks, what is the variable? So what did you want to know about?
So I got that one wrong because I chose the amount of money spent. Hold on, wait a minute. Number 6 is what you're saying on mine. Hold on.
Is it the amount of money
No.
spent on, oh wait, the variable?
The variable.
Okay.
The questions, you may have the questions in different orders, so be careful.
Yeah, they are.
They're
Oh, wait,
randomized.
I got that one. I'm good.
The first one I have is the variable.
Okay. The variable is,
What's the first one?
What? The first one is your first option, the amount of money spent on school uniforms
Yes.
each year by families with children at Knoll Academy.
Yes.
Okay.
yep.
Someone mentioned they got it wrong because they the one that might be confusing here would be the amount of money spent each year by families with children. Might be kind of the one that trip you up. But again, remember, the devil is in the details. And they were specifically looking at school uniforms for children at Knoll Academy. So make sure you get all of those description type words in there.
Does it tell us if we got it right, like right when we click on it? Is that the check or?
The check mark just tells you that it's saved. When
Okay.
you submit it, it should show you the ones that you got, what you got right and also what you got wrong. And you should be able to go back into your submissions and look to see which ones you got right and which ones you got wrong.
But we don't submit it until after question 15, right?
Till after question 15. But this is the practice problems. But the practice problem, and you can do the practice problems as many times as you want.
Okay.
The ones that you really want to focus on and make sure you submit are the homework problems.
Okay.
Because that's the ones that are graded. And for the homework, you get 2 attempts.
8. Starts with
Okay.
an 8.
My
So,
next question
on the homework, quick question. On the homework, and you said we've got 2 attempts. Will it tell us what we got wrong?
You can go back in and look to see what you got wrong and what you got right.
Okay,
But when you go to redo it, you have to redo the whole lesson.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can review the first attempt and look to see what you got wrong, and you may be able to figure out why you got it wrong. If not, you can drop me an email and say, hey, can you look at question so-and-so on this assignment? And I can go in because I can see everybody's. And I can go in and look at it if there's one that you feel like you're consistently missing. But you can go into your first attempt and see what you missed and hopefully correct that error on the second attempt and score higher. And I only count the higher of the 2. Okay? All right, the next question that I can see on my screen says, what is the sample? So what was the sample for this study?
100 families with children that
Knoll Academy. You're right. Again, the sample, remember, is that small group. And the other 3 options there had the word all. So again, that's kind of a gimme question, I guess. All right, number 8 on mine is the population. So what was your big picture?
All the families at the academy.
Okay, all the families with children at the academy. Again, those kind of the other 2 options there with the word all are like distractors, so to speak. Again, remember to put the details in. All right, then the next question I get is what is the statistic? Okay, so this is the statistic for the sample.
I got this one wrong because I submitted it and everything. So I thought it would be the amount of money spent on school uniforms by the 100 families with children at Knoll Academy. But it says the answer is the average amount of money spent on school uniforms by the 100 families. So why is that word average? I thought that it would be the one without the word average, considering the question says exactly how much the family spent. Like it says one family spent 65, the next spent 75, and the next spent 95.
Oh, it wants
Okay.
to know the average.
But when you're by the definition, a statistic is your numeric measurement. And so that word average tells me as a researcher that that's the measurement that I'm going to calculate. Now the responses, those values 65, 75, and 95 are actually my data. That's my data that I've collected. Those are the responses that I got from families. And I can take those three values, add them up, and divide by 3, which would give me the average. Okay, so the fact, because it says statistic, you've got to tell me what numerical measurement you are going to calculate related to your data. So you've got to have the word average, and it doesn't always have to be an average. It could be a percentage. And I was trying to look to see if the next example had the percentage. No, it's an average too. But your statistic could be like a percentage. It could be a ratio. If we wanted to have a ratio of the number of females to the number of males, or the number of left-handed people to the number of right-handed people. So it doesn't always have to be an average. That's probably the most common. But you need that word average in there because that tells me what measurement I'm going to use. And it does need to be for the 100 families because it's for the sample. Okay, then the last one, how'd you do on the parameter? Did you?
So that's the one that I got wrong because I chose the amount of money spent and it said the average is correct.
It's the same concept. Say for parameter, you're talking about the population. So it's the big picture focus. And again, you've got to tell me the measurement. What kind of measurement are you going to do? And so I'm doing the average for all the families, not just the 3 that I collected or the 100 that I collected information from. I'm doing all of the families.
Yeah, that's what I chose. The amount of money spent on school uniforms each year by families with children at Knoll Academy. That's the one I chose.
Yeah, that's
wrong. Then it says the average amount of money spent.
The correct answer is the average amount spent on school uniforms each year by families with children at Knoll Academy. Because you need that word average. Again, that tells me the measurement that I'm going to use.
I think where she's getting confused is because there's one that says the average amount of money spent on school uniforms each year by families with children at Knowles Academy. That's one of the options.
Yes.
And that I think that's the correct one. And the second option is the average amount of money spent on school uniforms by 100 families with children at the Knowles Academy.
I knew it wouldn't be the 100 because that's the sample size.
Okay, so you're telling me you knew it wasn't this one, and you know it wasn't this one.
Correct.
Yeah.
But my confusion went in is why are we looking for average instead of total? Because I thought average applied more to the statistic, the smaller the sample, and the population was the whole and everything, because our keyword is all.
Okay. The keyword is all for the population. But remember, if we go back and look at the definition of parameter is the numeric, if I can write with this little weird pencil, numeric
Description of the population.
Description of the population. So you have to tell me what numeric measurement you're going to use for the population. Now, honestly, the phrasing for the parameter and the phrasing for the statistic really are the same, with the exception of who are you doing it for. So
okay.
we said back up on the, make this go away. We said back up here on the statistic that we were doing that average
You're almost done.
for the 100 families, because the 100 families was our sample.
Circle the lighter.
So average amount of money spent on uniforms for all the families, and it doesn't use the word all in this description. It's somewhat implied because it says by families, and we don't limit it to the 100. So when you describe your parameter, you got to tell me the numerical measurement. Is it the average, the percentage, the ratio of whatever for the population? But then on the flip
So basically, parameter and sample are going to be the same when it comes to the numerical value. It's just a matter of, is it the small or is it the big?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Other question. And that gets us through question 10. Other questions, thoughts, comments?
So what I got is from population, it's all the numeric. For the sample was the amount. For the statistics is the numeric measurement and what it's asking for. The only thing I didn't get like a simple explanation to was variable.
Variable is what do you want to know about?
Okay.
Like, think about when you read that scenario, we want to know the average amount of money spent. Okay, think about what would you have to ask a person in order for you to be able to determine the average amount of money spent on school uniforms. And you're thinking about your variable. Think about what would you have to ask them about. See, I would have to walk up to somebody, to a family, and say, how much money did you spend on school uniforms? So the variable is the amount of money that they spent, because that's what they're going to respond to me. That's what that last sentence says, 3 families spent. So I went up to family number 1 and said, how much money did you spend on school uniforms this year? And the first person replied and said $65. And so then I go up to the next person and I say, well, how much money did you spend on school uniforms this year? And they responded 75. So the variable, think about when you're thinking about the variable, it's what you want to know about, and think about what you would have to ask, the question you would have to ask.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I got it.
Other questions? Okay, here's my recommendation. Even though if you look at this assignment schedule, it says that your homework for module 1 is not due until Sunday, I would strongly encourage you, if you have time between now and tomorrow morning when we meet, to maybe at least take a look at the statistics vocabulary homework. Okay? Because if you have questions, that'll be the first thing we do in the morning, is I'll see if you have questions and we can go back through things if we need to. Okay? The other thing that I want you to try between now and Friday is, notice this very first option under the quizzes. It says practice quiz. Okay? This is a classroom activity. I'm going to have you do it outside of class, but you need to try to log in to this quiz using the Respondus Lockdown browser. Now, if you're new to GHC, you may have to download the Respondus Lockdown browser application. Okay? It's a pretty straightforward download. It'll walk you through it. Okay? I want you to try that before Friday, just to make sure that you can access it without difficulty before you take the midterm. Okay, and if you have issues, we'll try to walk through it together in class before Friday. Okay, but I would encourage you, if you have time, to at least look at the statistics vocabulary homework and try to get through the practice quiz. And then I will see you in the morning. I'll be in the Zoom. I'll put my office hour link in the announcements. If you need to come in at 10 o'clock and ask questions, that's fine. Or you can hold your questions till we meet at 11:25. Any last minute questions? All right. If not, then you guys have a good afternoon and a good evening, and I will see you in the morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You too.